Alright, let's go ahead and talk about the last new servant that's coming with Lost Belt 6 Part 1, that being Baobhan Sith, and I'm pretty sure that I'm going to be mispronouncing that throughout this entire video, so I'm just going to call her Sith for your sanity and for my sanity. And if you actually saw the summoning video that I put out yesterday, you would know that I actually just recently got her to NP5, so I'm really looking forward to doing this video because I like Sith a lot. I'm trying not to let that bias seep into this video, but I think she's a very fun servant to use. Not super broken or crazy or anything, but very similar to, say, Barghest, who I also did a video on. Both of these servants are just fun to use. The style of gameplay they allow you to do is just fun. Barghest being like this very tanky servant that, outside of just getting blatantly one-shot, will basically be able to sustain her way through anything, and it's very fun to play as long as you got the time for it. And then Sith over here is very similar because she doesn't do a whole lot of damage, very similarly to, say, someone like Barghest, who she's releasing with, but her damage is very consistent and it will get you across the finish line, especially as she is just eviscerating the opponent with all of these debuffs. So it's kind of like the opposite thing of Barghest. Barghest doesn't do like huge damage, but is at the very least very consistent as she buffs herself. Sith is kind of the opposite. She's going to do that good consistent damage, but she's also just going to be debuffing the enemy, and I just find that to be a very fun style of gameplay. But before we begin, if you have not already, make sure you leave a like in the video and you subscribe to the channel for that sweet daily FGO content where your boy's going to make sure that you are informed on anything that is going on both versions of the game. Also, if you want to see me play FGO Live, I do that every weekday starting at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time over on my Twitch, which is linked down in the description down below. But with all that being said, let's go ahead and just start diving right into this video, starting off with Sith's hits, which are not super insane, but they're not bad. This is also due to the fact that she's got a 10% quick and a 10% arts buff, so those being her main cards are definitely going to benefit a lot from that, but her NP gain and her star gen aren't anything super crazy. 0.58% NP gain, 8.1% star gen, with 4 hit quick cards and 3 hit arts cards, again, are going to be very consistent at churning out a couple of stars, and also being able to take advantage of some nice crits on both her quick and her arts cards because they're both getting buffed by her passive skills to give her some pretty good NP regeneration. But even if that's not good enough for you, she does have 2 batteries that will definitely help her fire her NP consistently, which you do kind of want to be doing, because while she doesn't do a whole lot of damage, you kind of want to try and spam it as much as you can. I also hope that sometime in the future they do give a particular buff to the NP. If you've used Sith before, you probably know where I'm going to go with that, but we'll talk about that when we actually get to it. Let's go ahead and start talking about some of her skills because her hits aren't anything super insane. They're just pretty solid, for lack of a better term. Her first skill over here is kind of like the bread and butter good stuff that you kind of always want to be active, because what it's going to do is it's going to give her a 40% quick buff for 3 turns, then give herself invincibility for 1 turn, and give the entire party 1 hit of invincibility that does not wear off by turns, by the way, on a 6-turn cooldown. Let's break all this down. So for one, that 40% quick buff is actually a 50% quick buff, because remember, again, she has 10% on her passive. So essentially, when you pop this skill, you're rocking a 50% full quick mana burst for free for 3 turns, which granted, she does actually kind of need, because if you've seen her damage, especially at like NP1, it's not exactly the greatest. Which is why I recommend that if you want to use Barghest or Sith, pretty frequently, if they're going to be someone that you want to break out for numerous fights, you do probably want to try to secure that NP2, NP3 range, because otherwise it's going to feel like you're missing out on a lot of kills, and it's going to take you like 3 NPs to beat someone when most other people could do it in probably 1 to break a break bar, whereas these 2 may struggle a couple of times. But at the very least, Sith is a single target, so she got a little bit extra damage scaling on that one, I suppose. But yeah, the 50% quick mana burst, even though it's really good, is quite necessary. And if you're wondering why Sith doesn't actually do a whole lot of damage, it's because this is her only form of actual damage. She doesn't have any way to, say, lower the enemy's defense. She doesn't give herself an NP damage buff, no attack buff, no nothing like that. Thankfully, when Ruler Scotty comes out, she's helped out a lot by that, because Ruler Scotty will give her an attack buff and those will multiply into each other. So that's really nice. But for now, she's kind of lacking when it comes to buffs. But again, we'll talk about her NP in just a little bit, and there is a buff that I think would make her very, very good overnight that I will mention. Now, the invincibility is very nice on top of the party-wide evasion, because let's say the enemy is going to attack her more than 1 time, or they have sure hit, she at least has another form of survivability to make sure that she is going to stay alive. But the full party dodge is also very nice because it's not turn-based. You have that hit of dodge until it actually does come up. So let's say you're using her in, say, a boss fight and you pop this skill to dodge an enemy's NP or something on your Sith. Your two Scotties that I'm presuming you're going to be using with her, or maybe your Van Goghs because of, again, Sith's own NP, she does have some kind of synergy with Van Gogh. You'll be able to keep them around, or at least have them dodge the hit as well. So that's just a very nice thing that she does do. The 500 damage to herself really doesn't matter all that much. It's kind of just more slightly annoying, but if it really gets on your nerve, then either pack a Mystic code that can give you a heal, or give her one of the command codes that'll give her at least like a 500 heal. We have like 800 billion of those. But overall, not a bad first skill, does set her up for some success. I would just like to see her get a different buff type in the future so she could fully take advantage of this absolutely massive quick buff. But again, it does make her quick crits pretty nice as far as like refunding stuff goes, because that quick buff is buffing up the NP gain of her quick card. So also keep that one in mind. Moving over to her second skill, this one is also just very, very nice. She's sealing all enemies' skills and NPs for one turn, and she's giving herself a 30% battery. Not a whole lot that needs to be said about this skill, because that's just really, really nice. She's a single target servant, meaning you're probably going to bring her to some boss fights, but sometimes those bosses bring a lot of goons with them, so no matter if you're just fighting one guy or numerous guys, she's locking everybody down for one turn. Nobody's firing NPs, which technically is another form of survivability, and no one's going to give themselves mad crit buffs or huge attack buffs. Nothing like that is going to be coming your way for the next turn because of this skill, and the 30% battery is very nice. And I guess I will kind of skip over to her third skill because this also ties into her second battery that's over here, which is another 30% battery, meaning in total she has a 60% battery. And if you do happen to have, say, an NP345 Sith on your account, it does mean you actually can use her to some success in some of those very weird nodes where you have like one massive enemy. If there's like a large Berserker or a large Saber and you do have her at a pretty decent NP level, you can throw her in some of those team comps because she's compatible with, say, a 50% starting charge CE, and she could try to take those guys out for you, especially if you're using her in one of those strange Castoria team comps or using double Castoria to give everybody 60%. And then you also pop her skills, that gets you over 100, plus she gets the attack buffs, which do synergize very well with that first skill, because then she finally has a different buff type to multiply into that. It just makes her a very diverse servant. But then she's also got a little interesting effect over here as well. So she's going to suck 3k HP away from one enemy. That's very nice because, one, she takes a little bit of damage on her first skill. This helps mitigate that just a little bit. And it's also just nice because Scotty doesn't natively heal you with any of her NPs or any of her skills or anything, so it gives her some type of sustainability in being able to heal herself a little bit. But then it also has the ability over here to reduce an enemy's NP gauge by 1, so she's offering like 3 different forms of survivability to the entire party. 1, being able to give them a dodge, 2, being able to seal all enemies' NPs, and 3, reducing their NP gauges straight up. Like, it is very hard for someone like Sith to be caught off guard because she has like 3 different ways to ensure that she and the party are not going to die, which is why she's a very fun servant to use. Very straightforward. It's not like you gotta really plan things out and really use your 500 IQ brain to figure out what you need to do, but it is just a very fun, safe servant to use because you almost feel like you have a lot of control over the fight. And again, the batteries being split also ensure that you're not wasting them, because this could have just been a big 60% battery, but then what if you didn't need to seal the enemy's skills or their NP and you wanted to save that for later? Well, you can at least use the drain for now, get a little bit of healing, and save your second battery for later when you could actually take full advantage of also sealing the enemy's NPs and everything. It just makes her very, very fun to use. The only weak part about her is her NP, because the NP, again, especially at NP1, doesn't really do a whole lot of damage. The Pierce evasion is nice because dodge is rather common on bosses, so it does give you some way to kind of combat through that, which is very nice. But then it just deals with a lot of different curse damage. Now, I know that that's technically fine because Van Gogh is also a quick support, quote-unquote, and she likes to dabble in curses and everything, so it can be very nice to use her with that. I can kind of see the synergy, but what I would love for them to do is just buff the NP or buff one of her skills to also give her, say, a special damage mod against cursed enemies. And it doesn't have to be a full 150% special damage mod, but even if it was like, say, a 50% damage mod against it, it would make the curse on her NP matter a lot more, and it would give her a multiplicative buff for that massive quick mana burst that she's got going. And it would just drastically help out her damage a lot. Because again, even though if it's just going to be something like a 50% damage mod, the fact that you can almost guarantee it by smacking the enemy with curse on her NP, I think makes her a whole lot better. But overall, again, like Bargus, not like a crazy A or S tier servant, not super dummy insane, but just a solid servant overall. If you're like a newer player and you hopped into the game because you wanted to summon for Morgan or you wanted to get Castoria and you happen to hit this banner as well and you got Sith over here, she's just a very solid servant, very easy to use. I would also say very beginner friendly because she just gives you a lot of chances because you have the party survivability, her own survivability with the invincibility, the ability to seal and drain NPs, plus a heal, numerous batteries. It just makes her a very easy servant to use, and I like that a lot. But let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I'd love to hear what you guys think about this servant, but with all that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace.